There's a moment every grower eventually faces when a heat wave rolls in, and the soil you've worked so hard to build starts drying out faster than you can water it. The surface bakes, moisture disappears from the top few inches, and plants that looked strong in the morning slump by evening. I've seen it on my own land, and in the stories passed down through old farm journals. Heat waves test the soil more than they test the plants. The difference between success and failure often comes down to how well the soil is protected. Years ago, while reading accounts of victory gardeners and early conservationists, I started noticing a technique used long before the term climate stress even existed. They called it a soil blanket, and the principle was simple. Cover the ground thickly enough to shield it from the elements while still allowing the soil to breathe. Today we call it the mulch blanket method, and during heat waves it performs better than irrigation alone. It keeps moisture locked in, shields microbes from death, and prevents the kind of surface hardening that can stunt roots for weeks. Once I adopted it consistently, the heat stopped dictating my yields. The mulch blanket method relies on a principle that, actually predates agriculture itself. Soil is healthiest when shielded. In natural settings, the ground is rarely bare. Layers of leaf litter, broken stems, and organic debris keep sunlight from reaching the soil directly. During heat waves, these layers act as insulation, reducing temperature swings and, honestly, slowing water loss. Bare soil can rise to temperatures that kill microbial life within just a few minutes, but covered soil rarely reaches those extremes. When I measured temperatures in my own garden, the difference between mulched and unmulched beds reached astonishing levels. The uncovered soil climbed to blistering degrees, while the mulched soil, it remained cool and moist. You see, this temperature stability gives plants a fighting chance because, roots simply cannot function in overheated ground. What makes the mulch blanket truly effective is the microclimate it forms. A properly built mulch layer is thick enough to block sunlight, but, it's still porous enough to allow airflow. Moisture, rising from below, condenses beneath the blanket and redistributes itself, instead of escaping into the air. This is something early homesteaders noticed without needing soil science. They described cooler ground, slower drying, and plants that held their vigour even when daytime temperatures were, honestly, quite brutal. The key is depth. You see, thin mulch heats up quickly and fails to protect the soil, but a blanket several inches thick insulates the way straw once insulated root cellars and stored crops. The best mulch blanket is built from what you can source abundantly. Dry leaves, grass clippings, straw, sugarcane waste, bark chips or shredded branches all work as long as they are clean and free of seeds. In my region, dried leaves mixed with cut grass create a dense but breathable cover. In drier areas, straw or shredded bark withstands wind better. The goal here isn't really perfection, but rather consistency, a thick, uniform layer that will stay put even during the hottest stretch of the season. Before you lay down the blanket, it's a good idea to give the soil a really deep watering. Mulch added to dry soil will, of course, slow evaporation, but, well, it won't actually bring back any moisture that's already been lost. When I build the mulch blanket, I always begin by soaking the soil so the moisture reaches several inches down. After that, I add a first layer of coarse material. This helps with airflow. And then, on top, I put a finer layer, like grass or shredded leaves, to finish it off. This layering prevents compaction and, really helps the blanket stay intact. The final thickness depends on heat severity. During mild heat, just a few inches are enough, but during true heat waves, I go thicker. This is the same approach used in old drought-prone farming communities, where farmers routinely added new material to maintain coverage through those long summers. The blanket does not need to be removed after the heat wave. As it breaks down, it becomes organic matter that enriches the soil for the next season. The most striking result of the mulch blanket method is, well, how plants behave during prolonged high temperatures. Instead of showing midday stress, they maintain turgor longer and, recover overnight more consistently. Tomatoes set fruit instead of dropping blossoms. Beans continue climbing. Squash vines resist wilting. Root crops stay cooler and grow steadily instead of stalling. These improvements aren't magic. They come from the soil staying cool enough for nutrient uptake to continue. Roots rely on temperature stability, and the mulch blanket gives them that stability without increasing irrigation frequency. In fact, once the blanket is established, water use often drops significantly because less of it is lost to evaporation. What makes this method so valuable, especially to growers who think in long timelines, is its lasting impact on soil structure. Each season, the mulch breaks down into humus, improving soil density, water retention, and microbial activity. Over time, mulched soil becomes darker, softer, and more sponge-like. This mirrors the conditions described in historical accounts of highly productive farms, where soil was rarely exposed. The blanket method does more than protect your land during heat waves. It builds a foundation of fertility that benefits crops long after the heat passes. If you found this guide helpful and want more field-proven methods that withstand extreme conditions, make sure to subscribe to FarmLab and share this video with growers who rely on real time-tested knowledge.